Okay, good morning everyone. We've just had an extensive meeting of the Queensland Disaster Management Group. I've had over 10 mayors online. We have been briefed by the Police Commissioner, the Bureau of Meteorology, as well as the State Disaster Coordinator. At the moment we have a Category 2 system. The cyclone is expected to develop further and cross landfall within 24 hours tomorrow morning as a Category 4. We are already seeing wind gusts of up to 100 kilometres an hour around the Whitsunday region, but also to around Proserpine, and it's going to get worse over the day. So a very clear message to families now in those areas where the winds are picking up: please stay safe, stay off the roads, stay in a safe place in your house with your family and friends. The cyclone is now tracking further south. As we know, cyclones are unpredictable. We can't control them. But what we can do as a state government with all of our agencies is do everything we can to protect the families and to give them the most up-to-date information as possible. Around 3,500 residents have already been evacuated from the Home Hill area down to Proserpine. In relation to Bowen now, we have extended that, and a further 2,000 residents will be asked to leave. If the police contact you or your local disaster management group contacts you, you must listen to this expert advice. Let me say that again. Listen to the expert advice. That's exactly what I'm doing, and that's what I need families to do throughout our state. Listen to the expert advice. This is what the people of this state do. They are expert in these regions, and we need to adhere to what they are saying. We've had extensive consultation in relation to hearing updates about the tourism operators. Have all been contacted. We are not concerned about any of those areas in any of those operators in low-lying areas. We do have shelters now open at Bowen and Proserpine, and they can take up to 700 people. The buses have arrived in Air Home Hill, and they are transporting people to Cairns. But what we are seeing is this window of opportunity to leave is drastically closing. And as those winds pick up, it is going to be unsafe for buses to be on the road. It is going to be unsafe for cars to be on the road. And I'll let the Police Commissioner talk more extensively about that in the very near future. In relation to power, we have over 800 people from Energy Queensland ready to help restore power, but power will be going off. We'll have another update later on tonight. We'll be speaking to people again, but now is the time to charge your phones. Make sure your phones are charged, ready for when that power goes out, and you'll need to contact people down the track, but also to make sure you've got your torches and make sure that you have food, water, and a lot of people are on medication. Please make sure you have that medication with you so you know that you can actually access that as soon as possible. I was asked yesterday about freight. We've had 3 freight trains that have been able to deliver food. So once this cyclone passes, there will be food available in IGA and Woolworths. We've already stocked there. We have extra ambulance officers on standby. We've got an extra 25 staff deployed to this region. We've got specialist paramedics, and I want to thank the Health Minister and his agency for making sure that this is all in place. We will also have paramedics in the evacuation centres. All of the HHSs in the regions are on standby, and we have 600 beds available in the north if the need arises. But if people remain in place, those people who are sheltering, stay in your homes. But if you are in those evacuation zones, you must leave. And once again, you may not think that this cyclone is going to be rough, but Bruce will give you an update that the winds that we are expecting in the Townsville region are going to be more severe than those that were experienced through Cyclone Yasi. So there is no time for complacency at all. I don't want anyone saying that cyclone's moving further south, so we're not paying as much attention now, it's not going to affect us. These winds are going to be severe, and we will see structural damage, so we need to make sure that we are listening to the authorities. The Bruce Highway is open at the moment, but at a certain point in time that will close, and the Police Commissioner will update you further in relation to that. In relation to education, of course, we've got major schools, educational centres and childcare centres closed in this region today, and they will remain closed until further notice. If I can please stress to all families in this region, we are doing everything possible. This storm is going to escalate, and the cyclone winds will be severe. The storm tidal impacts, we are constantly modelling them at the moment, and Bruce will update us, but that tidal surge could mean that homes are impacted. That is why we need families to remain safe, and that is why we need families to listen to the authorities, because we have that modelling. We are giving the modelling to the local disaster management groups, and people must listen and must adhere to that advice. So as I said earlier on, the cyclone is now tracking further south. No room for complacency from Townsville all the way down to Mackay. This remains an area of interest, and the cyclone winds, the core of it is up to 100 kilometres wide. So a very broad sphere, once again, that is going to have a big impact across our coastline. So I know that families are doing the right thing right across the central Queensland and northern Queensland there. So thank you for listening to the authorities, and I'll hand over now to the Commissioner and then to the State Disaster Coordinator.
Thank you, Premier. The message is very, very clear at this stage. It's time to think very logically about your safety and the safety of your family, but also the safety of your neighbours, particularly if they're vulnerable people, the elderly and the infirm. I'd ask people to really consider their actions. Sadly, we've just learnt that there's been a fatal traffic accident near Proserpine. We believe that that's associated with this weather event, and it looks like a tourist has lost their life in that traffic accident. People need to drive to the conditions and really think about whether they need to go outside at this point. At some time later today, the weather event in that area, in the warning area, will get to an extent where all emergency services will not be able to respond to calls for assistance, because obviously we've got to maintain the safety of our staff, and that goes right across police, fire, emergency services and ambulance. So I'd ask members of the public to understand that, and that we will advise you when that occurs. The Premier is right. There will be road closures progressively from now. We know that the wind and the weather is picking up in the cyclone area as the cyclone nears the coast. Obviously, those closures will be placed on websites. There will be road close signs put on the roads. But as I said, in some areas there won't be emergency services there because it will be too dangerous to leave them out. If it's flooded, forget it. Don't go out unless you really have to. And please, we are working very, very hard to do everything we can to minimise the risk to all Queenslanders in that area that's affected, including visitors. We need you to help us so that we don't have any further tragedies out of this weather event. Thank you.
I might just get Bruce from the Bureau. This is the latest.
Thanks, Premier. As said before, at around 8 a.m. this morning, Debbie was still a Category 2 system, about 390 kilometres east of Townsville, and moving slowly west-southwest towards the coast. We are still predicting a Category 4 system, a severe tropical cyclone, making landfall sometime around 7 or 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, a little bit south of the area. But it's possible that the crossing point could be anywhere between Townsville and Proserpine. That's the uncertainty associated with tropical cyclones. The winds are picking up around the Whitsundays already. That's going to spread south towards Mackay and St Lawrence and spreading north over Townsville towards Lucinda as well, where we'll see those gale force winds pick up. As the Premier mentioned, the very destructive wind core of this cyclone could be about 100 kilometres wide, and it really depends upon the final crossing point of the cyclone over the coast as to which areas are impacted. And it's the time of that crossing that affects the storm tide inundation. If that coincides with the time of high tide, which is, depending on where you are, sometime around 8 or 9 a.m. or p.m, we could see significant inundation. Now, with that southward movement of the track, the target area for that storm tide inundation is really around the Abbott Point, Molongal Beach and Bowen as well. So they're the areas to watch. But if the cyclone itself moves a little further north and crosses towards Townsville, obviously those areas are in the firing line as well, or further south, once again, it could be down towards Airlie Beach. So it's a matter of staying aware of the latest situation and being prepared as much as you can in the little time that is left.
Can you say, when will you be...
I haven't finished yet. I also wanted to add that there's a severe weather warning current for the Port Douglas to Tully area. This is for Tuesday in the westerly winds that will be flowing over the ranges and getting accelerated in downslope winds for that area. There was a similar sort of effect that was felt during Yasi, but it's just for wind. There isn't a storm tide risk around the Cairns area. Hurricane force wind warnings are in place for Townsville and Mackay waters and the Great Barrier Reef offshore, and of course very large waves in excess of 8 metres and beach erosion likely. Rain is going to be a significant factor as the cyclone crosses the coast. Daily totals up to 200 millimetres will be widespread, and isolated falls of up to 400 millimetres are very possible near the coast. We have a flood watch current for all coastal catchments between Cardwell to Gladstone, and we'll have further flood warnings issued as necessary after we've seen the rainfall, and that includes eastern Gulf rivers. I think the message I want to leave you with is that you should stay tuned to Bureau warnings on our website or through our app or on Twitter, and take direction from emergency services as directed.
When will you be able to say definitively where Debbie is going to cross the coast?
Look, the uncertainty area, as you'll see on our track map, says between Townsville and Proserpine. That area is going to narrow more and more as we get close to the coast. Tropical cyclones are difficult things to predict, but it's something that Mother Nature still has over us. So just bear with us, and the pinpoint accuracy will be available to the public. We'll be doing hourly updates from about 12 hours from before the time of landfall.
Premier, I think there's a mention about a point there. Does that mean coal facilities or energy?
Look, we've had an update from the agencies in relation to that, and look, we do expect that there will be could be a big impact there, but everything that has been done to secure that port has been done, and as I said, all the ports are now closed in that region. I might just get State Disaster Coordinator.
Thanks, Premier. Good morning. I just want to reinforce a couple of things with people, but I'll first start with the thanks to the community for the assistance that we are getting on the ground up there, and for the great work being done at a local level through our local disaster planning and our district people. People are listening to the messaging. We have done directed evacuations out of Townsville, Burdekin and Mackay, the disaster areas, which includes Whitsunday and Bowen. Largely people have complied with that. There are some that have decided to stay. We are going back today and we are telling those people that they need to move on. I have to reinforce the message from the Premier and the Commissioner. If you are in a storm surge zone and you are directed to move, you need to move. You can shelter from wind in your house, you cannot shelter from storm surge. It is very important that people listen to that advice. And as mentioned by the Commissioner, this is going potentially to be a sustained response. If this is a slow-moving cyclone, it could take over 12 hours or beyond where we cannot get response out to people because of the wind strengths. So people need to be prepared to shelter in place with the provisions they need, be it medication, food, water, whatever, so that they can see out that event. And just bear in mind that we're already seeing the wind pick up in some areas up there, so it's a very small window of opportunity for people to get themselves sorted. Emergency workers are out there doing everything they can to get this sorted. Please go to your local council websites and advices, listen to the local radio. You will get the information you need to work out what you need to do from those places. I've mentioned we are evacuating different areas. We're constantly reviewing that. We have pushed significant resources across all agencies to the north to support that. We're continuing to review that, and indeed looking at what we will need to push into those areas once we start to get into recovery mode. Now, there are progressively places of refuge, shelters and other facilities opening. Again, go to your local area and look for the information on their websites, or engage with local police or other authorities to find out what you need to do. If people are worried, they need to contact the local authorities. That's where the point of truth is for all the things that they need to know. Finally, if people are still concerned and they're in a zone where they've been told that they don't have to evacuate, but they're worried about their safety, now is the time to connect and see where those shelters are that you can go to before the event comes upon us. I'm not going to go through all the different things that are available, but there are a couple I should mention. Just remember, as the Commissioner said, that roads will close. So 1940, that will tell you whether it's safe to drive and where you can go. And can I encourage people not to be out on the roads unless they absolutely have to be once the winds start to pick up. Our focus is keeping everybody absolutely safe. Yes, things will get damaged. We have things in place to deal with that once it's happened. Once someone's life's lost, we can't bring them back. So that's our focus at the moment. Thank you.
What's the cut-off point for evacuation?
That will vary, Patrick, depending on what area it is. So that's why it's really important to connect with the local areas, because whether you're in Early Beach or whether you're in Townsville or whether you're in somewhere else, it's going to be different. They don't assume just because they're evacuating now in Early Beach that I need to go now and I've lost my opportunity. Make sure you go to the local point of truth for the information.
And when will the last time that police knock on doors, when will that be?
We will tell them, and they need to listen for that. Police will stay out there, as will the emergency services right across the board, and right up until the last minute. And we've had this before in these sorts of events. Once it's underway and people want to ring for help, they may not get help.
Can you physically remove people if it comes to that?
We're doing directed evacuations, and I have to say people are generally very good. We've never had to manacle people and drag them out. I think we work with the community and we give them assistance, and in the end we get there, and we're continuing to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Premier. Thank you, everybody. Look, I also want to thank the public. You know, they have been very, very cooperative. This is a major exercise, what we're trying to achieve here, and sincerely thank you for what the public has done to date. However, there are a few more evacuations that are taking place as we speak. That window opportunity is closing very, very shortly. I want to reassure the public that there are substantial resources on the ground, pre-deployed, pre-positioned, already carrying out the work that's required. However, as has been said a number of times already, when the winds pick up, we will not be out there. And invariably what happens, people will try and call us through that period of time and we cannot respond. So please maintain your safety, look after those around you, don't be complacent, and just let's get through this period together, safe and sound at the end of the day. Sincerely, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of the communities that are listening to their local disaster management groups, but also to the police and the SES that are on the ground. I also want to thank the media for getting the messages out because the websites of the local councils have been inundated. We have had to get all of the maps out through every means possible, so a big thank you to all the media as well.
Premier, just talking about these evacuation buses, 4 of them left Home Hill as an evac service to Cairns, but only 6 people turned up. Why continue the service, and what does this say about people's attitude and safety when they admit their homes can't withstand it?
Okay, well, these were for the most vulnerable people, and we were encouraging people to make best use of those buses. And as I said, the police were out there in the local disaster management group. We're encouraging people, especially in those pre-1985 homes, those older homes. But some people are also seeking refuge with family and friends, and that is good because some people have structures built after 1985, so you would have seen a lot of those people heeding that message, staying with family and friends as well.
What areas are most at risk from flooding, or is that impossible to say until you know more accurately where it's going to cross?
I might get Bruce to elaborate on that, but we have been looking at modelling across from Townsville all the way down to Mackay about the prospect of the tidal surge and what that would do, and that is why we've had maps that have been put out to the public, but also to the local disaster management group and the police have been on the ground personally ringing people and going door to door. The caravan parks have been evacuated. People living on the coastal communities that have been in either small huts or not adequate places of refuge have also been told to leave and have done so. But once again, I'm just pleading to everyone, please listen to the authorities. I do, you must as well. Everyone must listen because we want people to be safe. This is about your safety, it's about the safety of your family and the safety of your children. There is nothing more important, and please listen to the messages and heed those messages.
There is a concern, obviously, after the cyclone has passed through as well, from downed power lines and...
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll be talking about that in more detail later on tonight. But of course, everyone knows don't go near live power lines, and we'll also be updating further information about diesel generation. I might get the Commissioner just to talk about that briefly.
Thank you. No, thank you, Premier. Obviously, there's a range of issues post the event. That's one of the reasons why particularly all emergency services, the police, the fire, the ambulance have pre-deployed extra resources to keep the community safe and to make sure that properties are safe as well. You know, with this type of event, the potential for large-scale destructive winds and destruction on the ground, there's a range of activities that need to go on. Obviously also the availability of fuel is a critical issue, the availability of aircraft, the use of airports, that sort of thing is something which we plan for. But again, we need the public's health and help in all of these areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. We've got to get back to it now. Thanks.